Hello and welcome to today's review of the Transformers Legacy Shrapnel. And just to start off, I think this is kind of alright in robot mode, but it's not the best looking thing in the world. I definitely think the torso, comparative to Kickback, is still too wide. Now, all they've done, if we get Kickback here for comparison, all they've done is remove these wing sections. They've retooled the torso entirely. Also, these shoulders, elbows, that's all different. The whole arm assembly is different. But in terms of width, all they've done is taken out the places where these wings would have been and just put new sections in their place. And then they've kind of slightly shortened how far out the shoulders stick, which, I'm all for it. I appreciate him not being as wide, but I think he's still too wide. He's just got really wide upper torso, and I don't think it quite looks right. Other than that, there's nothing too strikingly horrible about this besides these goddamn panels. So these are meant to cover up the face in bug mode. Now, they're stiff as anything, which is a little bit annoying. And they're pinned, right? They're pinned in between these pincer sections and this back piece. Okay, it's a screw, so they could be loosened. But I see why these couldn't just be universally movable, right? So they can only go in one direction, and that's inwards. Why couldn't they go outwards and sit flush in front of the bug pincers? Now, sure, people could complain that it kind of ruins the look of the pincer, but all it's going to do is cover up this lower section here, and this spike will still poke out from the top. So it almost looks identical if we just move these, because they just look ugly, right? They're not adding to anything. They're not accurate to anything either, So there's just no reason for these being engineered the way they are. It's just terrible. Now, we're just going to talk about accessories that it comes with, because I don't really have any more gripes with the robot mode. It's just really these panels and the width of the torso. Everything else that I might have to say about this is specific to the transformation and the way he articulates. So it comes with this gun, beautiful stuff. It's got a 5mm port, or the female connection on the bottom, male connection for the hand. So there you go, plugs in like so. Nice gappy forearms, that's welcome. Man, I hate that most modern figures now. If this was an older Transformer, there's a very high likelihood that this would be a panel that opens up that the hand would fold into. Nowadays, Hasbro just don't do that. Instead, we get mid-robot modes that are a lot smaller than they should be for the size class. I mean, this is somewhat average for a Deluxe size, but Deluxe is way bigger for many, many years beforehand. But oh well. This can kind of go anywhere. Yeah, it's typical affair for a Transformers figure. Just kind of loads of ports all over him now. And is there any way to make use of this female connector on the bottom? No, there isn't. Just kind of look around the robot mode. There's no 5mm nubs, so it's not going anywhere else. And then, like Kickback, I guess to kind of make up for size or whatever, and the fact that there's some shared tooling between all of the bugs. He does come with these two pistols. For all I know, this is a reference to something that I'm just not connecting any dots to, but whatever. It means you can have them dual wield. So for this set, it's kind of cool because you can have Kickback dual wielding swords, like so. You can have Shrapnel with the guns, or Scrapnel, whatever they're calling them now. And you can have Bombshell with just a little pea shooter, It's Bombshell with a pea shooter. He's just a little squad leader. I mean, you could also count his little head gun, if you want to. Cool stuff. Anyway, but Shrapnel, he's alright, alright in robot mode. Nothing too heinous. Just two things that I'm not the biggest fan of. So, from here, we're just going to go straight into articulation. So, for the articulation on Shrapnel, it's a little bit worse than Kickback. And Kickback was just very average for the most part, besides things like the elbows getting maximum bend. The shoulders are definitely worse, which is where we're starting. So due to the fact these bug pincers are here, you can't go all the way up. You know, you just get a raise of the arm. If you go backwards, you get slightly further, but then you don't get any further without pulling that in. And this just looks terrible. So when you're posing this, you're not going to move these normally just to get the arm all the way around. It kind of throws off the general look of the robot. So you're losing points for that because the arm doesn't naturally move without you having to do other steps. Now, he does have a bicep swivel, standard stuff. The universal joint here, like this pin section, it does go out at a 90, which is pretty average. It's somewhat very uncommon for shoulders to ever go any further up, at least now. Elbows, you get a bit more than a 90, which is welcome. It's only slightly more, but hey, you know, it's something, I guess. And for the transformation, you do get these inwards wrist swivels. It's whatever, it's not adding to it. I'd prefer a mushroom peg that would allow a full rotation. That'd be even more useful for a gun welder, but whatever. If we go to the head, we have a very tight, it's on a swivel of some sort. It's very tight, but it goes all the way around. There is absolutely no movement forwards, backwards, or to the left and right. Whereas kickback had a bit of swivel, this guy does not. Waist goes all the way around, really well toleranced, maybe a bit too tight, but oh well. Hips kick a bit further than straight forward, and then back about the same amount. Thigh swivel goes all the way around. Knee bend is a 90, as you can see, standard. Ankle pivots are really deep. It's the lower leg, it shares a lot in common with kickback, specifically these like the joint section above the thigh and the way it all works. Really, these legs are more in common with Bombshell when we get to him. And then you get a toe bend downwards, slight bit of toe up. But yeah, it's fine, you know. It's things like the shoulders not going all the way around, the lack of actual wrist swivels, the worse at elbows, things like that, and the head movement, they're definitely going to take away from the articulation comparative to what I consider the average nowadays and the way kickback are articulated by comparison, but that's something to get onto for the final thoughts. From here, we're just going to move straight into our size comparison. So for the robot mode size comparison, here we have Legacy Bombshell, Legacy Kickback, Ralph, Dave. And just because I feel like showing off something different, more specifically an older Deluxe, just so we get a look at height differences, Titan's Return, Brainstorm. So for the height on these guys, I think he's perfectly fine with the other Insecticons. Brainstorm by comparison, this is just a bit of an example that Deluxes have gotten smaller. I don't have anything much to add. I mean, they feel mostly the same, you know. This maybe does feel a little bit more weighty, but I prefer this, say, Brainstorm as a overall toy. It's just a more enjoyable experience. Not to say Shrapnel is bad. You know, Deluxes are a little bit smaller than they were a few years ago. Here and there, sometimes there are really small Deluxes that end up being really cool. Will I cover any anytime soon? I'm not sure, because none is sticking out to me off the top of my head. Most of the modern Deluxes I have are kind of just, you know, they're cool. Not many of them reach into the really good territory. But size comparison's fine. I have no real gripes with how any of this looks. Even with the minifigures, it's same old, same old. So we're just going to go straight into the transformation. So for the bug mode, it's just kind of cool. I have no gripes with the bug modes for Shrapnel or Bombshell. Just really Kickback that I have issue with, and it is generally cool. And just while we're here talking about bugs, I do want to address the fact that in the last review, I did transform Kickback wrong. When I ended with the bug mode, I did get a bit confused with how the flap on the back was meant to go, and that really threw me off. Now, it turns out the bug mode for Kickback is supposed to have the head like this, so the panel covers the face, which is pointing towards the ground, and then the yellow bit of the torso faces upwards. So I did mistransform Kickback. That doesn't change how I feel about the bug mode, and the engineering thinking it was a bit lazy with how it was handled, but I'll just address it now. Now, overall for this bug mode, the transformation process is a bit more involved. It's still nothing fancy, nothing really good for that matter, it just kind of exists, but it is a transformation still, even if certain things don't want to hold into place. I have collapsed the legs fully, but the arms don't want to, they don't want to stay reached out and tab into the legs. As you can see, they keep coming out. This one doesn't even want to go back in, so you're losing points on that. QC or not, I think it's just kind of a bad design choice, having it hold together like this. And even though I've kind of taken all the necessary steps to get the back the way it is, but whatever, I do like the inclusion of these underside bug legs. They're cool. The way they just fold into the back is nice. Generally though, it's just kind of a little bug brick, I guess, whatever we're calling it. And yeah, it's not terrible. It's just nothing amazing. So for the bug mode size comparison, Siege, Crosshairs, Ralph, Steve. Let's just move him over a little bit, and I ain't gonna really bring anything else into here because I'm gonna transform the other bugs at the moment. We're gonna save the 3 of them in bug mode for the final review, just kind of see how they all look together. And yeah, I'm okay with this. It's a bit back heavy. It doesn't rest on the legs. I mean, you have to bring this back section down, and still it won't sit flush. You have to bring it all the way down so it's angled for it to sit flush. And at that point, the arms can't actually tab in. So I do think the design for this was kind of poorly thought out because it doesn't sit flush without really moving an awful lot and whatever. Actually, yeah, if you angle these bug legs out a little bit further, so okay, yeah, there you go. I think the problem was wide legs was slightly inwards and not fully extended, so I'm not going to complain about that. Generally though, bug mode's just fine. Just going to put this in right before the final thoughts because the first time around I hadn't covered weapon storage for the bug mode, but as you can see there's 5mm ports on the lower parts of the feet and the top of the legs. Guns just plug in there, nothing fancy. It's nothing to write home about and very standard stuff for a modern Transformer. They are pretty lazy with weapon storage across the board. Now, if you really wanted, you could rest one gun. For some reason, it won't plug in. There you go. See, having one across the back like this, that looks fine. And then you could put the 2 on top. That's kind of alright. Maybe you should just have the 2 purple ones on top and then the painted weapon on the back, but neither here nor there. Doesn't add too much to it. So let's go back to where we should be. And now for my final thoughts. So for my final thoughts on Legacy Shrapnel, he's alright, he's nothing terrible. I don't consider it to be anything offensive by modern Transformer standards. It's just kind of very average. I do like the bot mode, just a bit wide. I like the bug mode. It's just kind of whatever it is. I don't hate it. It's just nothing special. So for the aesthetics on this scale, I'll give them a 3 out of 5 because I do actively enjoy the G1 Insecticon designs. So I'm not going to kind of sit here and just complain about the fact that they didn't do something the way I wanted them to. I do dislike some of the engineering choices on this regarding how these panels work and how the arms don't want to kind of reach to the back and tab in properly, but whatever. It's a 3 out of 5 because I do actually like the two modes. They just have problems here and there. Transformation on this guy, it's nothing special. It kind of feels like a 2.5 out of 5 for me, purely because it's nothing interesting. The arms, they're very clearly hair, and the legs have just scrunched up. The feet are sticking out the back. It's a bit visually messy, but it does do cool things like with the underside bug legs. So there's that. The articulation on this guy is also a 2.5 out of 5 because it's worse than kickback, and kickback was a little bit average to begin with, you know. Even though he had one or two joints that was a bit better than normal, like with the maximum kicking movement at the hips and the elbows being really good. This just kind of, it doesn't live up to that same standard, to be honest. You probably get a similar range with the legs if you really fiddle with them a little bit, but due to the lower part of the torso on this one being a bit wider, the legs don't quite have as much room to kick all the way up. And it's missing proper wrists. The shoulders are bad. The knees, mid, head movement is absolutely abysmal. So it's just kind of a bit whatever there. It's lower than the average nowadays. And value for money on this guy, I'm also giving it a 2 out of 5 like kickback. I do not think this is worth the £25 retail, given how basic the engineering is across the board. The lack of articulation does not help. However, I do like the accessory count, and it does feel nice, right? It doesn't feel bad. There are some modern figures I've handled that don't feel as good as this. Those will be reviewed in time, and the reviews might be a little bit more scathing because I actively dislike some of the legacy stuff I have. But that really wraps this up. Overall, I'll give him a 3 out of 5. He's cool, you know? Yeah, I could probably put him down to maybe a 2.5, but he is fine. You know, he's just very middle of the road, especially for a modern Transformers figure. So this has been AnimatedCHUG. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.